Good morning, my name is Linh and I will be your examiner for today's speaking test. And this test will be recorded for marking purposes. So could you please confirm your full name?
My full name is Phan Trần Thế Sơn.
Thank you. So let's start with part 1. And in this part, I will ask you a few questions related to yourself. So let's talk about history. Do you like history as a subject in your school and why?
I have to say no to this, unfortunately. I think it all comes down to the way that history was taught in my high school, and unfortunately, the teacher that was assigned to my class, she did not do a very good job at it, and so I wouldn't say history is my favorite subject.
Okay, number 2. When was the last time you read a book? The last time you read a book about history?
I think it's a long time ago, and I believe that it was the history textbook. I mean, it's pretty cliche, I think, but like I told you, I'm not a particularly huge fan of history, so that was probably the only and last book that I've read.
And number 3, have you visited any history museums?
I think that I have visited the Museum of Minor, what's the name again? Minor ethnicities? I think that's the name, and if you count that as a history museum, then I have paid a visit to that place multiple times, especially when I was a kid. And, as a kid, I was pretty amazed with all the stuff that was going on in there, so it was pretty amazing for me as a child.
And number 4, do you like watching documentaries or movies related to history?
Oh yes, definitely. I think that the reason why history is generally considered boring in my country is because of the way that it is taught in our school. And so putting that in films or any other types of media really, changed the perspective of some sort, and it really puts emphasis. And it is a way to make history more engaging for youngsters.
The next question is, what historical event do you find most interesting?
I think for me that has to be the Vietnam's Independence Day. It takes place on the 2nd of September 1945. I remember that, and annually, my country has a very big celebration going on for that specific occasion, and so you know how much of a deal it is that day.
Do you think history is important?
I don't think that this should be even a question, because, well, obviously, for obvious reasons, because one way to put it is that history is kind of like the face of a country, and without history, well, there's literally nothing to write about our country anymore. And if you think of it that way, history is kind of like the backbone of a nation.
Okay, so let's turn to part 2. I'm going to give you a topic, and I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. You will have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say, and you can take notes. And here is the cue card for you. You will describe a famous person you would like to meet. Okay, so here is your pen. Now you will have 1 minute to prepare.
Okay, for this topic, I think I can just jump straight into it and will describe to you Taylor Swift. I mean, it's pretty generic, but hear me out on this. First of all, I'd like to say that I'm not exactly a huge fan of Taylor. I just listen to her music and I vibe with her songs, and that's pretty much it. But again, I think that Taylor Swift is someone that needs virtually no introduction at all. I mean, if you ask a random stranger on the street, then chances are they probably know who Taylor Swift is. And most notably, I think that she is most well known for her songs. Her hit songs especially, things like Shake It Off, Blank Space, We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together. I have a couple of those on my playlist, and I gotta say that her hit songs, well, are really hits, if you know what I mean. But other than that, I think there is one other aspect of Taylor Swift that I feel is pretty underrated and don't get enough recognition, is her songwriting capabilities. Her hit songs like Shake It Off and whatnot really overshadows her writing capabilities, and people have the tendency to ignore that. But in her recent work, for example, such as the Folklore album, which she released in 2019, and she really showcased her songwriting capabilities. And And from then on, people started to take more notice of this aspect of her. And I think that is something that she's totally deserving of. And regarding the things that I would do if I had ever had the chance to meet her, probably I would ask her to give me an English lesson. Fun fact about Taylor Swift is that I remember that there was this one time she confessed to the press that if she hadn't become a singer, she would become an English teacher instead, and justifiably so. And I think it clearly shows in her recent work, and I would probably ask her to do an English lesson for me. And for your information, actually, the majority of my English vocabulary comes from Taylor Swift, actually. You know, words like, I can list a couple of them out for you. For example, iridescent, gauche, I don't even know what that means in the first place. And yeah, things like that. It really helps me enhance my vocabulary. So that's definitely the first thing that I would want to graciously ask Taylor to teach me. And probably another thing that I would ask her if I ever had a chance to meet her once is to sing a duet with her. I mean, like, I know that my singing capabilities are pretty limited, and I do not hold a candle to that of Taylor's. But you know, having a chance to have a duet with the person that you admire is, you know, a dream that many would aspire to have. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Interesting. So now let's turn to part 3. I'm going to ask you a few questions related to the same topic in part 2. The first question is, do you think celebrities should necessarily be good at their field?
I think it is a foregone conclusion that celebrities have to excel in their field. I'm not exactly sure how to put this into words, but I feel like celebrities have to have something behind their names other than just their fame in order to become famous and to be popular among the people. Personally, I think that there are a couple of people that do not deserve the title of celebrities. I will not mention their names here, but I think that talent is something that can keep a celebrity going for a long time. For example, Taylor Swift. I mean, she has been around in the industry for 20 years now, actually, and she has been going on very strong. And I think it's solely thanks to her music and thanks to her all of the talents and all the repertoire that she has. And on the other hand, if you look at some other celebrities, you will notice that some of them have fallen out, actually, and you don't see their names in presses or in headlines anymore. And I think that's definitely a must. If the celebrity if they want to have a sustainable career in this industry, then definitely talent is a must.
So what do you think are the differences between famous people today and those in the past?
The first thing that comes to me, the most striking difference, is their presence on social media. Back in the days, social media wasn't there at the time, and celebrities at the time mainly used their talent to advertise themselves. And traditional media, for example, TV or TV commercials, they only, how to say this, they weren't on the media quite as often, and so it was really hard for the audience to get to know them as a person and as an artist. However, nowadays, as you can see, there are multiple social media platforms that celebrities can advertise themselves on: Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, you name it. And even celebrities can get an additional source of income from these platforms. So really, nowadays, you literally see them everywhere you go. And yeah, I think that is the most significant difference between celebrities nowadays and in the past.
And do you think the media is putting too much attention on famous people?
I think that it depends on which famous people we are talking about. I mean, if the person is famous and influential, like Taylor Swift, then yes, I think it's definitely the case. I think that the media is really scrutinizing her, and funnily enough, she has mentioned this multiple times in her songs, and I think this is the same situation for other influential celebrities. However, if the person is famous, but they're not influential at all, then there's no really any reason for the media to pay attention to them. And I'm speaking this from the perspective of those agencies. And yeah, so I think that it ultimately comes down to the level of influence that these celebrities have on the society.
And what qualities does a person need to have when taking care of old people?
The first thing that comes to me has to be patience. And I'm speaking from experience. Not that I wouldn't mention that, but I think that when it comes to old people, while generally they are slower and there are things that they cannot keep up with the youngsters, especially when it comes to things like technology and technological devices and whatnot. And so, for example, when you want to take care of older people by showing them how to operate a piece of technology, then probably they would need to have an immense amount of patience in order to show it to them, because chances are you will have to repeat the process multiple times until that old person can remember how to use the device on their own.
Okay. So thank you for your responses. So that would be the end of the speaking test today. So have a nice day.
Okay, I will try. You too.
Okay, so now it's time for feedback. So firstly, let's talk about fluency and coherence. So you could speak very fluently and coherently, and your responses are well structured. You gave a point, and then you gave illustrations for your answer, as well as giving a conclusion at the end. And you could speak at length without much hesitation. And for this, I think criterion, I would give you 8.5 to 9. And then for another thing about lexical results, so I think that your use of vocabulary is very flexible, and you could use numerous topical words related to the topic of history or famous people. And you were also very effective in using connectives between the sentences, and you could transition smoothly between one sentence to another. And for this criterion, I would give you about also, I think 8 to 8.5.
I'll take it.
And you could also, besides that, I think that you were also very effective in using idiomatic expressions, which is a good thing in speaking, which will help your, I would say, your responses more diverse. And then for grammatical range and accuracy, I think that you demonstrate a strong grasp of complex grammatical structures that are mostly accurate and contribute effectively to the clarity of your arguments. And I think that to improve your grammatical range and accuracy score, I suggest that you can try to use more complex structures like inversions, for example. And for this criterion, I would give you also, let's say, 7.5 to 8.
Fair.
And finally, for pronunciation, your pronunciation is clear and you have an impressive American accent, which makes your speech very understandable. And you are also very effective with your intonation, as well as the stress patterns that can assist expression. And you also had, I think, effective linking words which have your speech more natural. And I think to achieve better native fluency, you can look at some other aspects of linking words, as well as some parts of your stress in some sentences. When you want to stress out something, maybe you can try to emphasize some content words rather than some grammatical words. Okay, so for this aspect, I would give you 8 to 8.5 for pronunciation. So overall, your performance would get about, I think, 8 to 8.5. So that should be all of my comment.
Thank you.
So thank you for joining the mock test today. So could you please say something to the audience that is watching this video? So how would you prepare for the IELTS speaking test, and can you give them some tips maybe for improving their pronunciation, or maybe how they can structure their responses?
Wow, that is that was very uncalled for. One tip, I think is just to go with the flow, to trust the process that you have been taught, and just try to use whatever you can during the IELTS speaking test, because during the actual test, the stress very much comes into play, and chances are maybe that people will forget everything that they have been taught, and I think that from my experience, it's perfectly normal, and all that they can do is to just try their best that they have. Yeah, that was pretty broken, but I think you get the picture.
Okay, so thank you for your sharing. So thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the future.